Hello everyone, it's me. I'm going to wait a few seconds for it to transfer over to YouTube and start broadcasting there. And then I'm going to ask you if you can see and hear me correctly. So while I do that, I'm going to light this candle to set the space for our time together today, to set an intention. Our intention will be to learn some shit about death, have some conversations, get some questions answered. Oh, loud and clear. Okay, now where to put this candle? That's creating a lot of black smoke, actually. I'm sure it will be fine. Is there somewhere you can see it? I'm just going to put it here because I know in my heart that you can see it. Okay, so what shall we talk about? Well, actually, I have some things to talk about. So first thing is I teased this for you. God, I look rough today. I think I was at NPR this morning, which sounds like a humble brag, but I recorded an NPR show this morning, and I have a face for radio today, let's just say. But you're all my friends. You're going to be fine with it. So I wanted to do a Q&A or a live stream at the funeral home. I wanted to do it maybe with Amber, who I work with. The idea being that you could get two perspectives on these natural burial, running a funeral home questions. But her cat is deathly ill. Like, her cat is, he's not dead. He's not dead, and we, of course, hope that he will not die, but she is at the vet with him and has been for the past couple of days. So everyone, hashtag pray for Amber's cat. So since that did not happen, you just get me again today. But I promise that we will go back to that idea and film with more people or invite more people onto the live stream, because I think that would be a cool thing to experiment with. The other thing, I'm working on all sorts of video stuff today. I have a script that I'm editing right now. Woo! Like, that would give you any information, but that's the script. I'm also working on the final edits on a script that is going to come out this week. The editor and I kind of go back and forth at the end on the last little fixies. There's an intro problem that needs to be fixed, but we're also doing a massive amount of work because I'm going on tour. I'm going on book tour the end of September all through October, basically. So I'm not going to be in LA much at all. And as I've learned in the past, if you think you're just going to leave LA and leave all your filming equipment and leave all of your work and your normal work schedule, and somehow these like fully written and produced videos are just going to magically happen. They're just going to produce themselves and come out to everyone's, great acclaim to the people of the world. No, it's not going to happen. So we have to do a lot of planning now to make sure that we are ready for this trip to happen. So there's going to be a lot of busy work on videos in the next month or so. All right, let's do some of the questions. Some of you wrote questions on the actual Patreon page. First one, when are you coming to the UK? I keep being asked that, and my reply is always the same, which is nobody wants me to come to the UK. I know you want me to come to the UK, and I appreciate that very much, but I used to, when I was first starting out with the first book, people were like, yeah, we're going to bring you in. We're going to, set up various events for you. We're going to take you to Scotland. We're going to take you to Ireland. We're going to take you to the UK. We're going to take you to France. And it's less like that, which is honestly sort of weird, because I'm not selling less, but in fact, I'm selling quite a few more books than I used to. It's not like I am a failed author. So I'm selling a lot of books and people want to see me. And the fact that I have a YouTube channel means that people, maybe would want to see me even more than a normal author, because I'm also like someone who you see on the screen. I'm like, hi, I'm your friend, hello. So I think that people want to see me, but I just am not. Flying someone from LA to the UK is a big deal, and it's a lot of money, so maybe they just don't want to do it. But yeah, there's also, I'm doing an event in Toronto, and it's more of an industry event. It's like a conference for industry people, so it costs more money. And of course, I have nothing to do with the price. They're just bringing me in for this event. And people are like, why don't you, come to Toronto and meet us all? I'm like, well, I can't really do that if no one has invited me to something, I can't I can't do it if no bookstore or like library has invited me in for something. I can't just show up in a city and be like, I'm here, come to see me. I mean, maybe I could, but probably not. Okay, so other questions. There was a lot of questions about this, and I think people are echoing or saying, yes, tell us more about this. Ways to get into the deaf industry without going to school. Obviously, that's a question that I get a lot. This chair is, I never noticed how much noise this chair makes. I get that question a lot. There's a lot of things that you can do, and in fact, I would recommend that you do not go to school, mortuary school, if you don't really want to be an embalmer, for instance. Like really being an embalmer, if that's your dream and your passion and your life's work, then you probably, especially in the US, and really a lot of places, you probably will have to go through some school or internship or training program to become an embalmer. And that's just the way that it is. So if you know that you want to be embalmer 100%, 1000%, that's what you want to do, then yeah, you're going to have to figure out how to go to school, how to, get that money, how to get a scholarship, how to make things happen so you can go to school and become an embalmer. But any other job in the industry, like any other job, you probably should not start with school, in my opinion. As far as going in to get a job to see if you like it, funeral home jobs are not easy, especially when you're a random person. And that's weird to say because sometimes they are kind of easy and you get lucky. Like sometimes they're literally will be like, we need a crematory operator, just like anyone, just like, have you worked with heavy equipment before? Do you have like some experience? Like, is your name Joe? Yeah, come on in and be our crematory operator. So in that case, you need no experience, you need nothing, you just need to be the most competent, sane looking person who shows up for the job, and like, boom, you're a crematory operator. And then other times people apply at 30 funeral homes in their state and hear nothing back because they just don't need entry-level people. So there is a lot of luck involved, which I'm sorry to say. But I think that if you really show up and you're knowledgeable and you say the right things, you show up and you say, I'm just really interested in helping people and I'm willing to work whatever job you gave me. Because when I first started in the funeral industry, I did everything. I vacuumed the carpets, I washed the vans, I cremated the bodies, I met with families, I did some of the higher level stuff and I did low level stuff. And there was nothing that I would ever say I wouldn't do. If they wanted me to drive a car full of flowers to the cemetery, I'd do that. If they wanted me to go pick up several dead babies at once, I would do that. There was nothing that I wouldn't do. So I think if you want to get a job in the funeral industry and just see if you like it and see if you can handle the dead bodies and see if you can handle the families who are crazed with grief, you just have to be willing to do whatever, whenever, whatever they offer you. Some other options if you want to get close to death, maybe you could, volunteering for hospice is always one that I think is a really good entree into the entree into the industry, because it lets you work with dying people and really face your mortality and see if that's right with you. And something that spoiler, a series that I want to do for the channel is something called You Don't Have to Be a Mortician. And the point of the series will be that there are so many different careers and paths that you can take that are still related to the death industry or still incredibly death positive, that don't involve you having to be a mortician or get some license or go to school. So I want to share more of that with you all, because there are a lot of options that are not necessarily being a full-on mortician. So this is a great question. Who are some of your favorite death positive artists? Any taxidermy recommendations? Any taxidermy recommendations? So actually, Sarah Chavez, who was my main right-hand woman in all things, just put up a blog today on orderofthegooddeath.com called Deathstagram, and it's all these different Instagrams that deal with death and dying and grief, and a lot of those are artists and a lot of those are people with death positive, really engaged art, and I actually hadn't heard of a lot of them, and it's a really, really cool piece. So I think you'll find a lot of people there that you like. There's also a person that I hadn't been following, even though I have known of her for a while, but I just started following her. Her name is Alice Markham, but Alice is spelled A-L-L-I-S, and she's a taxidermist here in Los Angeles, and she's done a lot of stuff with the Natural History Museum, but her work is just so beautiful, and her Instagram is so beautiful. Like, look at this guy, look at this bird. This is not going to show up very well, but look how adorable and well done that bird is, that taxidermy is. I think her Instagram is A-L-L-I-S. Let's see, what else do we have here? This is a thrilling live stream where I just go through my Instagram and show you pictures of taxidermy. Toucan, that. She's just really good, and if you go to her website and you see like her top work, you're just like, wow, this person is very good. They're very good. Very, very good. Okay, other questions. I'm sending my corpse to the body farm in Tennessee. Congratulations. When I kick off, but I'm from New England. Do I have to have a funeral director transport my body, or can one of my friends get the necessary transport permits and drive me there themselves, National Lampoon Grandma style? Or can I arrange it with an appropriate mail carrier myself? I love the idea of you just going to FedEx, like as you're dying, you're like, listen, they want my body fresh. I'm just gonna pass away in your lobby and just wrap me up in some cellophane and send me down to Tennessee. No, you definitely cannot work with a mail carrier or any sort of like a delivery people to send your body. I would say, I mean, the number one people to ask would be the body farm people themselves, the decomposition facility people themselves, because they really are kind of the experts. So the problem with talking about transporting dead bodies across state lines is that there are so many weird laws about it that, you know, I can't give you a one-size-fits-all answer to. Like, for example, like sometimes you need to be, you know, like in a certain kind of transportation or a certain kind of permit or a certain kind of something, which I sort of understand why they do, but I think there should be I really, really think there should be a national standardized version of how you transport dead bodies across state lines, because it's like, well, if you're going to Tennessee to Connecticut, you can't do this, but if you're going from Kentucky to Pennsylvania, that's like, why? Why would that be different? That's stupid. And it makes people so focused on that when someone dies and figuring it out as opposed to just doing it. So for California, where I live, for instance, you know, you could, if you got the right permits, you could totally do it National Lampoon's grandma style. You can totally, like in California, what's really interesting to me is that when you transport a body, funeral directors like myself have certain rules for how we have to transport a body. You know, we have to have a van or a covered vehicle of a certain kind. Like people can't see in. It has to be a certain size. Like there are all of these. We have to carry insurance. There are all these certain rules that we as funeral professionals taking your money to transport mom around have, and that makes sense. We should have rules as to what we can and can't do. But the family has no rules, and the family is allowed to take care of the body. So really, you could put grandma in the back of the Prius, you could put her in the back of the truck in a Rubbermaid container, you could put her, you know, propped up in the seat if you want. I haven't heard of anyone doing this, but legally, I believe you are allowed to do all those things. So really, you know, and it can actually be kind of a fun, therapeutic, interesting experience to drive your grandma from, or have someone drive you from New England to Tennessee, you know, if they preserve you. But the body farm too, if you're donating specifically to, you're not just taking her down there to be, I've made up, this is a question is about you, not about your metaphorical grandma. I've like conflated these two things. If you are being transported down to Tennessee to, for any reason other than just to be buried on your own terms, they might want your body in a certain state. They might need a funeral director to be involved because it has to be quick and they have to be packaged a certain way. You know, just ask the body farm in Tennessee exactly what they need. Are you writing another book? I don't know. Am I? I don't know. Oh, it didn't blow out. That's very ASMR. Do any of you watch ASMR? One of my favorite ASMR things is when someone is blowing on a candle, but it doesn't go out. Like, I don't know if you can hear that on my microphone. Anyway, ASMR with your mortician. A lot of people have definitely requested a lot of me doing ASMR. I don't know what I would do with that. Like, I don't want to be disrespectful or like, oh, you're like, do ASMR when you're putting makeup on a dead body, or like do ASMR where you're doing a conference with the family to, you know, because of their loved ones dead. So I don't know what I would do. I don't know if it would be like, Mr. Johnson. And he did pass away yesterday. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry for your loss. Have you decided between cremation or burial? Yeah, I think that's an excellent choice. Absolutely, absolutely. We can do everything we can to make sure you're comfortable with your decision. God bless anyone who just tuned into the live stream and is like, well, what is going on? What is she doing? Yeah, it's my new thing. It's ASMR Patreon live stream mortician. Just gets weird. Just gets super weird. So someone else kind of asked to follow up on that. How do you find, I feel like this hasn't been updated. Why did everyone just stop asking questions 20 minutes ago? Let me do a little refresh on this. I suspect, yes. Haha, there are more of you. I knew it. I knew it, I knew it. Okay. How did you meet Amber and the other deaf-friendly people you work with now? That actually, you know, that might actually be really interesting for you too. I'm gonna see, what is ASMR? Okay, ASMR is autonomous sensory meridian response, I think. It's when you feel, when people feel like tingles, ASMR mortician, that's funny. When they feel tingles or a pleasant feeling because people do things like rub the camera or crinkle paper or spritz a water bottle, or it's just noises that make you feel good and chill is ASMR. So how did I meet? Actually, a really smart idea might be to do a live stream with Amber and Susanna. So Amber is the one who I've been working with from the beginning, and basically she's sort of the manager of the funeral home right now. I still do the, the finances and all the overhead stuff, but she really runs the show on a day-to-day basis. And then Susanna is our funeral arranger, and we hired her, I think, almost exactly 1 year ago. And she might be a really interesting person for you too, because she didn't go to mortuary school. She worked at several funeral homes before, and we actually just put the call out online for a funeral arranger. Originally, it was someone who, actually, no, that's not true. Originally, and this is a story we could maybe expound on later, but originally we put out a call for someone just to help us with deliveries and help us with small things around the office, so a part-time person. And she grew with us to the point that we had her trained as a funeral arranger in California, and then brought her on full-time as a funeral arranger. And you don't have to have any license to be a funeral director. You have to go to a training course, but it's like, a day, and then it's just on-the-job training after that. And she doesn't have a full mortuary education, but she works with us and she's fantastic. And when we put the call out, we didn't aggressively promote it on our social medias because we didn't necessarily want a lot of people. It's really sweet when people are like, I live in Connecticut. How can I find out how to move to California to work for you? And it's like, oh, that's really sweet that you want to do that, and really awesome that you want to do that. But that's a lot of pressure for us to respond to all of those people, because a lot of those people are not actually in a position to drop everything and come start work for us, especially a part-time job, which is what it was when we originally advertised for it. But this is someone who, when we first interviewed, we were like, okay, you're really passionate about this. You really care about families. You're really excited about growing in the funeral industry. And you too have had a lot of the same problems that Amber and myself had in the industry, where it was just, she wasn't liking what she saw in the funeral industry and how other people were treating families and what was prioritized in the funeral industry. So she ended up being a really good fit, and she's been with us the whole time. So the answer to how we met her is the internet. I think it was like, I don't remember even what it was like, it wasn't like ZipRecruiter, but it was something like that. We just posted on a jobs board, and that's how she found us. It seems like there's a lot of buzz around green and natural burial, especially in the past year or two. Yes, there is, Kristen. Excellent. Besides the benefits in regards to environmental impacts, do you think there's something to be said in becoming closer to the earth, nature, and non-human entities, as well as recognizing humans are part of the ecosystem rather than the kings of it? Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I think there is. I think there is a whole philosophy around natural burial, and that's what I was talking about on NPR this morning. Don't run over my cord. That's what I was talking about and the host, which was really excellent at the end, was really pushing me on that. He was saying, do you feel like there's a larger philosophy here? Do you feel like there's a larger death acceptance connection? And the answer is yes, 100%. I've always felt like that. For me, I really enjoy that natural burial, just a hole in the ground, put your corpse in it, is simple and environmentally friendly, and how we've been burying our dead for tens of thousands of years. I enjoy the environmental benefits that it creates, because I believe that climate change is real, and I believe that we're destroying the planet, and even just taking these small steps, I think, can be meaningful. But for me personally, far, far more than that is the idea of the mental impact it can have on our culture. Because I think more and more people are seeing that our way of doing burial, where we take a chemically preserved corpse and put it in a metal casket sealed up underground in a concrete vault around it, and it's like this, vault of denial deep in the earth. They're saying that's not a healthy way to look at our own mortality. When you're closing your body off from the earth so intensely, you're also closing your mind off in a way from asking questions or being interested in mortality or facing the reality of death. Which sounds a little like you're closing your body, you're closing your mind, but it's true. Like it couldn't be a more obvious metaphor that we're like, sealing grandma deep underground and pretending that nothing's going to touch her and she's not going to decompose. That's just not the reality. So I think the wild, messy truth of a natural burial, of your body going back into the earth, is this very powerful mental shift where you say, yeah, it's messy. Yeah, I'm going to decompose. Yes, I'm going to be eaten by other animals just like I ate other animals. But there's a power to that, and a power to accepting that and engaging with that I love, and I think we need a lot more of in our culture. So I was wondering if there's a difference between how a cremation is arranged in America and how it's arranged in England. Yeah, there definitely is. So I'm actually not sure. I realize now I'm not sure how different the paperwork is. I imagine that there is a difference as far as the bureaucracy, but honestly, probably not that much of a difference. Like, it's a bureaucratic mess to die in the United States, and it's a bureaucratic mess to die in the UK. It's just, that's the way that things are in the developed world. But what I think the real difference is, in America, we have this tradition in the 20th century of displaying the body, putting the body on display, embalming it, showing it, having people walk by. And the UK has always found that really distasteful for the most part. They've always found embalming distasteful and these elaborate viewings distasteful, and they've never gotten it. It's never transferred over. It's not like Coke that we've like shoved upon you. But in the US, you have a lot of funeral directors who are really scared of the fact that people don't want that as much anymore. They don't want those kind of viewings. And if you go to any funeral director conference or read any funeral director trade magazine, what you see is funeral directors and writers trying to say, okay, how can we still make money from cremation? How can we still make cremation, relevant and still make it so you can, monetize it, I guess, beyond the cremation itself. Because they're terrified of these direct cremations where a funeral director just takes the body, cremates it, hands you back the ashes, wham bam, thank you ma'am. They're terrified of the rise in that kind of cremation. So what ends up happening is they really try and sell you on, you can still have this whole big viewing before the cremation takes place. And, in some ways that's not entirely different from what we're saying to, what I'm saying to people is like, yeah, you don't, when you have a direct cremation, you don't just have to give me the body and never see it again. You can be involved, you can see the body, you can be there for the cremation. But what I'm saying is you don't necessarily need, it doesn't need to cost much more. You don't need all the bells and whistles. You don't need the full embalming and the makeup and the wake and the funeral and everything. But in England, the difference really is people have always been a lot more willing to show up for the cremation in England. That's not a thing they need to catch up on, but you don't really see the body. You show up for the cremation and it's the closed casket. And so you walk up and you see the casket and you watch it maybe go and load it into the machine, but you're not seeing the body. So I think both cultures sort of need a lot of work there. I think that you should show up and you should see the body and you should see it going in the machine, but it shouldn't cost a lot more and it shouldn't be hard for the families. That's just my personal opinion, but that's also the main difference between the two countries. Definitely thought you were going to drink the candle. Yes, Siobhan, I thought that too. That would be, what happens if you drink a candle? A more lighthearted question, would you ever consider having a shirt in the Good Death store with our beloved meow on it? Dun, dun, dun. Yes, I would consider that. As a matter of fact, we have, we're going to try and do a new thing. So Amber, our funeral director, we have, everybody has like 14 different jobs when they work with me, unfortunately. Unfortunately for them, lucky for you, because they're all very good at everything they do. But she has been selling Etsy and selling, selling things online in fashion for years. She really loves it as a hobby. So what we're trying to do for the fall is have a collection of 3 different designs with 3 different artists. We haven't really announced this yet. This is another sneak peek. So we have 3 different artists, 3 different designs that will appear on all sorts of different things. And I can neither confirm or deny any connection to cats and death and the meow in one of these designs. Quick question, where do you get all your amazing rings? Thank you. My nails look terrible right now, by the way. They're not that short. It's the polish is, anyway. So I don't need to explain myself. It's fine. You know how nail polish works. Rings are from all sorts of places. I get them from estate sales. I get them from the interweb. I get them from Etsy. I've been really into big geodes lately. So anytime I see a big geode ring, none of my rings are super expensive. I don't really wear costume jewelry, but I don't have a ring that's over $75 in my collection, I think, at all. So yeah, I love rings. I love rings on my body because I'm a really tall woman, so I can pull off sort of bigger rings. But I also love them on camera. I love when I'm doing a video and because I'm a very, as you can tell, I wave my hands around. So I think that looks nice. It would also be nice if I could keep my nails nicer, given that desire, wouldn't it? Jesus. So here's a question on the actual live stream. I come from a blue collar / low income family, and death has been financially devastating for us in the past. Any tips for someone who wants to help change that for other low income / blue collar folks? Yeah, I have a lot of suggestions for that. First of all, I'm sorry that death has ever been financially devastating for you, and that's bullshit. It's terrible that anybody should. I think that, frankly, that there should be a government death benefit that pays you $1,000 and that allows you to get, at the bare minimum, a simple, dignified cremation or even if possible, for religious reasons, a simple burial. And yeah, I think that should be part of it. But as far as what you can actually do right now in your community, I think being the person in your community who knows these things and knows how to work with funeral homes is really, really vital. So, for example, say that someone's dad dies and they go to a funeral home and the funeral home gives them a quote of $10,000 for a funeral. You can have an honest conversation with them and say, we know what you want for the funeral, and maybe you have access to a GoFundMe or a community or a church or fundraising that can help you reach that goal, and that's wonderful. But if you don't have access to that, what do you really need out of a funeral? Are these things that you want and you desperately need, or are these things that the funeral home told you you need? So, for example, if they're quoting you $10,000 for a funeral, does the family really want memorial folders? Do they really want a spread of food? Do they really want embalming? Do they really want this particular kind of casket? Do they really want this kind of hearse to go to the cemetery? Because all of those micro costs add up very quickly to thousands of dollars. So if you're the person who knows, hey, wait a second, I don't think do you want this? I don't know if you want this. Have you considered cremation? A cremation will, at my funeral home, a cremation is $795, flat rate. That's no hidden costs, $795. And we've worked really hard to get it down to that cost because we want it to be as affordable as possible. And we are one of the most, one of the least expensive places in LA by a significant margin. And people may not know that a cremation at my establishment is identical, if not a little bit nicer, because you get us, than another place that charges $4,000 for a cremation. So if you just have a sense of who the players are in your neighborhood, how the language you need to use to talk to a funeral director, I hate to say this, but like the tricks that some funeral directors may do without even knowing it to raise costs for people, then you can be super, super helpful to your community, to be the person who knows how to talk. And anything that you want to do to broader to help this issue and help awareness with that issue, like, please, more power to you. Keep going. If me and my dog die together and I want a natural burial, can they shove her in with me? So this is actually kind of a complicated question because it depends where you live. In some places, I actually did a small talk on this at one of our death salons in Seattle. It's actually easier for a human to be buried in a pet cemetery than it is for a pet to be buried in a human cemetery. I don't know why. I do know why. I think the reason is that people think that being buried with pets is very disrespectful. I don't think that, obviously. I say like, put as many animal bodies in my grave as you want. Like, come one, come all. It's like the Pied Piper of animal corpses. But some people find it really disrespectful, so it's hard to get permission for animals to be buried in human graves. Someone just asked, what if the pet is already cremated? That's easier, because I think that's a lot easier to like just kind of, because pet ashes are, especially if it's like a cat, it's like a sack about, Caitlin, it's about that big. It's not a huge amount of ashes, so it's not like you're trying to sneak a whole human cremated remain. Like, you just put it in their pocket. Don't tell anyone I told you that, but you can just put it in the pocket. You can, sneak it in the casket. Like, there are definitely ways to do it if the animal's cremated. There's a new concept, though, that you might want to Google because it's pretty interesting, called the whole family cemetery. And these are a new sort of advocacy wave of people who think whole family includes your pets. So when you have a whole family cemetery, it means that everybody should be able to be buried there, which is nice, I think. I have no problem being buried with animals. I have no problem being cremated with animals. I say cremate humans and animals in the same thing. We're not allowed to do that either. But I think it's changing a little bit as people are, people are obsessed with their pets. Yeah. Charlotte follow-up says, in England, you don't go see the coffin into the cremator. You have to leave the crematorium chapel before the staff take the coffin in the next room to cremate the body. I've heard very different from that. I'm totally sure that is happening where you are, or has happened in your experience. But I've had a lot of funeral directors tell me that, you have this kind of glass window and you walk up and you just wait, and you can see the casket kind of going past into the cremation machine in England. Which, again, is like still, even if, I wouldn't be surprised, though, if they're even moving away from that, because it's much easier to just not let the family see anything. Like in America, if you go to a burial at a more conventional cemetery, they put the casket there, and then it just kind of sits there. And then they make you all leave, and then they lower it into the ground and put the dirt on. It's like, families want to be there for the good stuff. That's the good stuff, guys. Can't keep that all to yourself. The best way to lower costs is planning. This is really nice. This is someone that we worked with, and they said that we saved him money. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, Mike makes a really good point. He said, I was confused in the beginning regarding, the viewing, the rosary, the location, the catering, and if you're planning ahead and you don't want to spend a whole lot of money, that's a really smart idea. So yeah, if you're thinking also about other ways to help low-income people, is if you know they're dying and you know that the death is coming, yeah, it's hard to think about it in advance and it's hard to plan. It's hard to face that inevitable, but it's a lot harder when someone has actually died and everyone is running around trying to figure out, people are flying in from out of town and trying to figure out what to do. And it gets only, it doesn't get easier after someone dies. It only gets harder. So if you're trying to be smart about your money and how you spend it on funeral expenses, yeah, the number one, I don't mean prepaying for things. You don't have to do that, but just being aware of what things cost, what funeral home you might want to go to, why you want to go there, what the estimated price is going to be. A funeral home has to give you an estimated price, and they have to give you a fully detailed, itemized price list. So get that in advance. So someone back to the pet cremation or burying the pet. I was literally talking about slipping remains into a coffin last minute. Yeah, I'm talking about that too. That is also what I'm saying. I'm not saying that that's the completely legal way to do it. Just don't tell them that Caitlin told you to slip any pet cremated remains in a casket. Because I didn't. So this is really nice. A lot of people talking about their different UK cremation experiences. This is like my favorite thing. I'm like, tell me more. Typey, taking in the anthropology here. Some people saying, yes, you waited around and you see it. Some saying no, we did leave the room. They closed the curtains and we left. Man, I know that I'm kind of preaching to the choir with all of you who are already really interested in being involved in death care and being really involved in death. But, it's so sad to me, the idea of showing up somewhere and actually being physically present and being I'm here to view and to see this happen. And then before it even goes into the crematory, the curtains just close. And that's, it's goodbye, no corpse for you. Jesus, why? Why are you doing that? Let him see it. Oh, this is a great question. So this just came up today. I was reading about how pharmaceutical companies in the US don't want their drugs used for execution. I was wondering what rights, if any, inmates have about what happens to their body after execution. So I believe there was I can't remember what state is in, unfortunately, but the first person ever was lethally injected with fentanyl. And that's how they died. And this is my personal opinion, obviously, but the audacity of a drug company, these drug companies that have made billions of dollars from people becoming horrifically addicted to their painkillers and their opioids and their prescription drugs, to the audacity to say, we don't want our drugs used in lethal injections because we want to be associated with life, not death. It's what? No, and to be fair, I don't agree with lethal injection either. I don't agree with the death penalty, to be honest with you. I strongly don't agree with the death penalty. I don't believe that the government should be allowed to murder people. It would be one thing if these pharmaceutical companies were taking a stand and saying, we don't believe in the death penalty, and that's why we don't want our drugs used in this way. That would be one thing, but it seems like what they're saying is we don't want our drugs used because we don't want it to be associated with bad things or with death or with, all that. Yeah, you did that to yourself. You've already associated yourself with death. Drug companies. That's on you. As far as what rights a person has after they've been executed, they have basically any rights that a person who dies out of prison would. It would be their next of kin who has the power. So if, someone on death row still has parents or has a wife or has children outside of the prison, they get the body. It's not like they don't release the body from prison. After the body is dead, it is no longer considered a threat to the public, and out it goes with the family, and the family gets to decide what they want to do with it. I've actually picked up several bodies in a prison before, not that had been, executed, but that had died in prison. And it was strange. It was really strange. It was interesting that I was the first person to take them out of prison. Here I'm driving out in my van with the person who was incarcerated in back, and I'm like, you're free, but you're dead. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, what's your favorite cemetery in LA? That's hard. How can I choose? I would say that, by the way, I keep rubbing my hand because when I was doing the whole curtain bit that I was just doing, I whacked my hand right between these two little bones on the edge of my desk here. And I think I'm going to get a little bruise. Talk about bringing it on yourself when you just can't help yourself not to do some comical bit in the middle of a live stream. Yeah, talk about on you. So best cemeteries in LA. Forest Lawn, you mentioned Forest Lawn. Forest Lawn is so weird. It's so bizarre. It's so, I recommend reading. Sometimes Sarah Chavez, who I works with, does tours of Forest Lawn with Atlas Obscura or something. Definitely try and go on one of those if you can. But read about the history of Forest Lawn. Even just read the chapter in Smoke Gets in Your Eyes about Forest Lawn, or read just a little history of Forest Lawn, because once you know the history and you know how they set it up and why they set it up the way that they did, it just makes the whole thing even more bonkers. But as far as actually really fun to visit, definitely Hollywood Forever. I'd say that Hollywood Forever is equally bizarre in its way, but they, have famous people buried there, and they're much more into Hollywood Forever is much more into its famous people than Forest Lawn is. Forest Lawn has all the super famous people buried there, but they're we don't tell you where they are. We don't promote that. It's oh, come on. Yes, that people love celebrity graves. This is not a surprise to anyone. But Hollywood Forever is much more, the big statue of Johnny Ramone. You have they're much more open about their celebrities. There's also a lot of beautiful mausoleums there, and it's right in the middle of Hollywood. So I recommend going there. Something that if you like, so there's a museum of death in Hollywood, that people will often ask me, do you like this place? Do you recommend going there? It's not a museum of death like I talk about death. It's basically a museum of serial killer memorabilia. But if you're a really intense true crime person or somebody who loves, crimes through history, that would actually be a good place for you to go. So if you did a day where you went to the Death Museum and then Hollywood Forever, that would be a very excellent Los Angeles Death Day. Hot tips. Oh, this is something we actually thought about doing a video about, and we might still. Do you think that tearing down buildings where mass shootings took place, like Parkland High School or Newtown Elementary, is a death negative or positive? I think that's a fascinating question. And I think we wanted to do that in a broader, like Pulse nightclub in Orlando, and, what do people do when a just like unthinkable, terrible tragedy comes to a physical space? And what do you do if you're like the Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas? You can't tear down that entire, this 40-story hotel or whatever. It's this huge resort because someone killed so many people from that one room. But isn't it also just like a place that is now permeated with despair and these reminders of this horrific thing that happened there? And how do you handle that? I don't know that I really have a perfect answer for whether it's like death positive to keep the building there or death positive to tear the building down. I think it depends on the situation. But I am very, very fascinated with how each community or each group chooses to handle the physical space. Do you memorialize it? Do you tear it down, just pretend that it didn't happen? Do you try and, reach a medium? I think Columbine High School reached a medium between the two and renovated the whole school, but didn't tear it down entirely. I know Newtown entirely tore down the entire elementary school, I believe, and rebuilt it. But does that really solve it? I don't know. There's a lot of bigger existential questions there that I can't completely answer, but I think it's really fascinating, and I would like to do a larger video exploring that at some point. Okay, so it's been over 50 minutes already. Where has the time gone? When you're having fun with your friends on the internet, it just lasts forever. So I will answer one or two more questions if you have them. I'm checking my listicle here. It's weird. I feel like I was flooded with questions earlier, and now I'm like, I don't see any questions. There's no more questions. Oh, something I did want to tell you about, which is a little weird, but I wanted to tell you about a dream that I had last night, because it was so interesting. I know it's never fun to hear other people's dreams, but it was, I don't know, I think it's cool. So it was me and 5 or 6 other people. And it was some more people I knew, like Amber from the funeral home, and Elua, this doula we work with, and some guy from YouTube that I don't even know. And we're all in a teen horror movie together. And it was in the movie. I felt like I was in the movie. And something would happen where some invisible creature would come and suck someone in, one of the people in, and you'd see it happening to them. And you'd see the terror on their face, and they would disappear for a short amount of time. It was only 10 seconds, and they would come back, but they had been through some shit, something dark had happened to them, and you could just feel the horror of where they had been, trying to explain what they had been through. And so the tension is building up as this happens, to one person after another, and we're trying to figure out how to stop it. And I'm getting really scared because I'm so worried it's going to happen to me, that I'm going to be next. And I get so tense about it that I decide in the movie, in the dream, to Google and Wikipedia the movie that I'm in and read the plot to see what's going to happen to my character. So I read the plot, and it says, the last person is taken by this and only Caitlin remains, and Caitlin dies 15 days later. So that's how the movie ends. So I never get sucked into this horrible fear void, but because I've seen it happen to anyone else, it's sort of like The Ring, I die 15 days later. And that's what Wikipedia has spoiled for me about the movie that I am starring in. Isn't that weird? I thought that was weird. That's my dream. If I die in 15 days now, this will be a really cool live stream to have been a part of, because I will have predicted my own death. I expect a lot of YouTube conspiracy videos to be made about it with, millions of views each, hopefully. you know, in honor of me. Okay, yeah, now that I've done some ASMR, talked about lethal injections, explained my dream to you, I think that we've, you know, filled up our hour with a lot of love and light here. I am, as I told you, I am going to on tour. I am traveling, so I hope that I'm going to someplace that you live. And I think I'll probably do, I'll probably be gone already by the time that our next live stream comes up. So maybe I will do the next live stream from some exotic locale. Maybe a cemetery somewhere, but more likely like a hotel room somewhere, if we're being honest. Oh, this is nice. Happy early/late birthday. Early birthday. My birthday is this Sunday. Thank you. I'm not super into my birthday, not because I fear getting older, but just because I don't know. I feel, maybe this is like a Leo thing, but I feel like people should be celebrating me every day. You know, like I think that people should have, I would rather people have like a mid-grade, solid respect and love for me every day than like a really spiked love for me on my birthday, but not much love for me most of the rest of the year. Does that make sense? Does that make sense, anyone? Anyway, okay, it's our hour is almost up. So I wish you all very well. I hope you have a very death positive week. Happy birthday to me. And I promise next live stream, or at least live stream after that, when I'm back from tour, will be maybe with Amber and Susanna to talk more about the funeral industry and getting into the funeral industry and the different jobs and more of the nitty-gritty stuff. So I think that would be fun. Okay, goodbye, deathlings.